Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a special episode of Lessons My Son Taught Me. My name is Natasha,
I'm Quincy.
and today we actually have a very special guest with us. I will allow him to introduce himself.
My name is James, also known as Quincy's father.
Yes, welcome. so, as you all know, we recorded an episode earlier this season called How to Tolerate the Other Parent. And so we figured it would be special to actually invite the other parent. So we are going to get started shortly.
Well, I would like to say thank you guys for having me on. I'm a big fan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, welcome, James,
Thank you.
known as Quincy's father.
Yes.
So, you guys, just for the record, this is so unprecedented because although James and I have co parented now for an at least 15 years now, we have never really sat down and had a conversation in front of Quincy like this. And this is special, right? To be able to do this with Quincy and just discuss kind of lessons that we have learned from Quincy together, talk about what it was like to raise Quincy, and just hear Quincy's take on what it's like to have both of his parents in the same place at the same time for longer than an awards program.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I don't know. It's like just like having a one-on-one. I feel like conversation is like it's definitely rare. Um, so no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's very nice that you guys, you know, sat down to do this with me.
Yeah, and I think even just getting set up, it was it was comical because I was saying things and he was saying things, and you're like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah, no, y'all funny. Y'all funny.
Our job is to embarrass him as much as possible.
Yes. So, um, one of the things that I had discussed on the other episode, James, was how important it is for us to respect each other, right? As well as respect Quincy by not discussing each other in the presence of Quincy in a negative manner. And um, I think he spoke to you about that. And I I feel like you've received it well. What are your thoughts on it? Um, I'm sure you agree that that's something that we can do and continue to do.
Well, yes, Quincy did talk to me about that, and I respect his wishes. I respected his wishes at the time. Uh, Now, as a imperfect human,
Hmm.
I have my thoughts. I probably also have let certain things slip within the past 15, 17 years.
Hmm.
Uh, but we're all imperfect,
Right.
so it's about learning from our behaviors and trying to do better while also being aware that our children are watching.
Hmm. Yeah. And how does it feel, Quincy, to just know that, you brought something to your parents' attention and that they are being intentional about, you know, making sure that they respect your feelings and honor your feelings when it comes to not putting you in an awkward place as to, talking about each other in in your presence.
I mean, let I mean, it's really nice, but at that point, I was just like, I don't know. I just wanted to talk, Um, but there's a certain age, where you come to just realize, like that, people are imperfect people. They're not. No one's perfect by any means. They're human. So,
And we have feelings.
of course, of course.
Mhm.
Um, but no, just to get that off my chest, just like felt really nice. But also to have you guys listen, and respect it was nice as well. So I appreciate it. Like also I'm becoming older, so you know, it just felt nice. I felt mature and respected at the same time.
I love that for you. I love that for you. And, I wanted to acknowledge live or, on camera, right? And I've said it before, James, I feel like you and I have done a really great job at co parenting in spite of our um, rare moments of differences or what have you. Because I feel like for the most part, this has been a very great co parenting relationship compared to a lot of our peers, right? We haven't been in and out of courts. We haven't, had huge legal battles. And so we've had a pretty blessed situation. And we have main- maintained a mature co parentship over the years. But I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that at such a young age, you know, you definitely stepped up to take care of the responsibility of having a child. And I certainly never considered myself a single mother, even though maybe society may have looked at me as such. I never considered myself a single mother because I always had the support of you constantly, consistently. And I think I mentioned it when Quincy was about to start like test prep, right? Like I kind of gave us and you kudos, right? What do you think about our having done that so young? Because I was, what, 18, 19? You were,
Yeah, I think
Quincy
you're
knows the ages.
19. Yeah. Uh, I was 23. Um, and yeah, we had our ups and downs, as most young couples do who have children. Um, and I also got to say that outside of our effort,
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of backing from my mother.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And without her, we
Liz
probably
was
would have been dropped
phenomenal.
out of school.
For sure.
We probably, I don't know where we'd be.
For sure.
But I do have to commend you for, you know, not making this journey too tumultuous.
Mm-hmm.
I, as you know, have other kids with other people,
Mm-hmm.
and it has not been that easy. So I commend you on that, and also thank you for allowing me to raise Quincy in the aspect that I wanted to, for the most part, um, along with all the errors that I made throughout his life,
Of course.
because I made a lot of errors.
So did I, likewise. Absolutely. Able to do that.
But
And
so I have a couple of questions.
sure.
One, being lighthearted, going back to when we found out that you were pregnant, right? And we made the decision not to tell our parents.
Okay.
How did you feel about that?
I was, okay, this is
Because
definitely
for
off
those of you that
topic.
don't know, I don't know if you guys have already revealed this,
No.
but we did not tell our parents about Natasha being pregnant until Quincy was almost here.
Hmm.
So again, how did you feel?
I was very much in favor of that decision.
Were you scared?
Um, no, I was not scared because Quincy felt like he was supposed to be here. He just felt like he was supposed to be here. I was young. I did not know what I was really doing. But as I said, like, I felt confident just because you were so responsible and because of how much you wanted to be a father at the time. Um, and so it was, I didn't want the stress or the feedback or the opinions of family and friends. I knew what I wanted to do, which was keep my child, stay in school, and live my life and raise my child. What anyone else had to say about that did not concern me or my child, and I was only going to tell them after the fact.
I have to admit that I was scared,
That's
and
fair.
there was a bunch of times throughout your pregnancy that was scary.
Mm,
Especially like when you were down at Radford
mm-hmm,
and I was up here working
mm-hmm,
and not knowing what's going on,
mm-hmm,
not knowing how the pregnancy was going, not knowing what your body's doing.
mm-hmm.
It's all very scary to a father
Yeah.
who can't empathize with women,
Mm.
so it was scary. And then also, once he was here, this being our first child, we don't know what we're doing. We had what was the book called that everybody swears by is like the Bible?
Yeah, what to expect while you're
Yeah.
expecting. But I feel like I can't explain it. It just came, a lot of things were instinctive.
But how many times did we try to call his pediatrician, not knowing what was going on?
How many times did you try to call the
Yeah.
pediatrician?
Or like for instance, like I tell people, so they say that babies they're not that mobile when they come home from the hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Quincy was mobile. He
Mm-hmm.
was rolling, he was moving, you know, and people that I tell that to, they don't believe me.
Yeah, yeah. Quincy was definitely very active and, reflex wise, just very fidgety. But
And then Quincy, I have a question for you.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay. So you were born to parents who were enrolled in school full time,
Mm-hmm.
active on campus, active at the church, different things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you very much grew up in that environment.
Yeah.
So how was it as a child growing up, going to mama's events with her sorority, being on campus, being involved in the church? How was it for you growing up?
So it was, I don't know, it was very supportive. I was a kid, so I was really cute. People loved me. I felt like I was
Oh,
very
you were
shy.
cute?
Okay. I was very shy. I felt like, but so on one hand, being at the campus at ODU, um, it was very it was interesting. Like I think about it more and more as I get older. I feel like I'm starting to forget more, but I can remember various times, like when you went to the studio, I think it was, or the art place, and
Hmm.
you would have to work on graphic design projects. There was a time we went to like this little showing where they were showing like little animation or something like that. It was in like a dark room, and there were various times with you when I would be hanging out with the deltas or the Q's, and they even taught me that song about the dog. Okay, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do it, but yeah. And as well as the church, I made a lot of friends. Um, and I don't know, it's very nostalgic. There were the neighbors that we had who would watch over me. That was really nice.
Hmm. Yeah, when
And
they say that, it takes a whole community to
mhm,
raise a child, that's very true.
it's very true.
And if
Yeah.
it wasn't for First Baptist of Lambert's Point
Yes. Yeah.
or, like you said, our neighbors, and their name slipped my mind right now, but
Yeah.
Valencia.
Yeah.
Valencia, yep, yep.
No, they were.
Like there were so many times where I was working and you were at daycare and I
Mhm,
couldn't get there before the daycare was closing and I had to call them or call somebody to come get you,
mm,
and I'm like more than appreciative to those people.
yeah. No, I mean that whole period of my life being that young, it was very influential. Like the people They not only taught me how to act, but they just taught me like what I want, for my future. I made a lot of friends. I learned that I was good at art, you know. We watched a lot of movies. Um, I like the color purple because of the cues. That's my favorite color. Um, but just so much was influential at that time, especially at the church. Doing the flags and helping out in the community, passing out flyers, like that all gave me, you know, necessary character development. I feel like.
Beautifully said. Yes, I definitely appreciated that whole time period of your upbringing, especially when we were all involved in church. Yeah, so I was a praise dancer. let's
Hmm.
let's for the record, I was a praise dancer, not just a dancer. So, um, when your father wanted to attend First Baptist and have you participate in Sunday school and as a flag, um,
Whatever.
whatever you want to call it. I don't want to even misname it. I said, okay, well, let me attend this church. Let me see what it's about. And I did, and I enjoyed it. Um, and so I started attending myself. And that's when I became, a praise dancer. And I got to meet some pretty special people myself. And it was a very transformative time, I'll say, because I met some people who were um, life changing in terms of the trajectory of my life path. So, absolutely.
Do you have any questions for us?
Um, I mean, I hear like all the stigmatism or the stigmas about like having a kid in college. I want to know like genuinely how was it? Was it difficult or did it come easier? Because I don't know about the housing situation. I feel like I was too young to remember, but I can imagine it was easy.
Yeah, it was not easy by any means. Uh, you know, the first house that we had neighbors, college students that were right next door who would always party, and there was plenty of nights where, their noise and their commotion was disturbing us, disturbing you, and I'm not going to say what we all did in response to that, but it didn't make things any easier. There was a time where we were up here for Christmas and we got a phone call saying that our house had gotten broken into
Mm-hmm.
and people took a lot of stuff. One of which was a computer that had all your baby pictures on there,
Mm-hmm.
and that was gone. So, little bumps in the road like that made it harder. Of course, us being enrolled in school full time was, a heavy load on us. We also were working part time at different places. Uh, and we didn't have any family down there with us. No
No.
help from any of them, unless we were coming back up here, which was 4 hours away. You know, so it was not easy by any means. I do not recommend it to anybody. Uh, uh, you know, finish school, finish things that you have to do before you think about having kids.
Absolutely.
Know that you're having kids with the right person. Try to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, for what it's worth, we really made it work because we decided, of course, we were going to finish college. And you were convenient in the sense that you were born during final exams. I made your father take his final exam before we went to the hospital, and then we started Christmas break. We returned from Christmas break to start our new semester. And we scheduled our classes so that when one of us was in class, the other was at home with you. And we didn't have to get a sitter for at least the first 15 months of your life. And um, so I would pump and leave milk behind. And we were so very, you know, responsible and intentional when it came to raising you. We didn't have any family, like your dad said. So we made sure you were our responsibility. We were the ones to take care of you. We didn't ask for help. You were our responsibility, period. And your father was working. I worked part time. And I don't know, it was just like we were in our own little bubble. We were in our own little bubble. And at the time, I was so domesticated, child. I was cooking, I was calling my grandmother, for like certain recipes. Yes, very domesticated. But it was cute and we loved our little life at the time. Um, but it's not something that people at 19 and 20 and, you know, before 25 should have to experience if they don't have to. Also, to your credit, you were a pretty easy baby and child, right? So,
I mean, I don't know because you guys both say do like two different things. Like you say that I didn't cry that much, but then you were like, you did cry, But I don't,
Yeah, I'm not
I
saying
don't know.
you were a bad child. Like
Yeah.
you cried just like any normal child would cry if you're hungry, if you're not getting what you need. Um, you know, the things that scared me when you were a baby was you had
That's what. Oh.
reflux, very bad, and asthma.
Mm.
And there was plenty of times where I had to wake up in the middle of the night because you couldn't breathe,
Mhm.
and we would have to give you your nebulizer. But again, I think that all of that is normal with any growing baby. You know, which is why babies come out and their bones are not fully developed. We had to put you in braces
Mm.
when you were a baby.
oh,
You know, just because the doctors were saying that your feet were turning in.
Mm.
So there was a
Wow.
lot of stuff that we had to do to make you into the perfect specimen that you are right now.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You
That's
know, you're like the Terminator.
crazy. Yeah.
and something that I was given a lot of flack for from my family, Quincy, was the fact that when your father and I separated, and I essentially moved from out of the area, you know, where we were living. I allowed him to stay. I allowed you rather to stay with him. And my family gave me a lot of flack for that. Like, you're the mother, you should have him. Um, well, he's a boy. He's a boy. And while I respect the women who have done that, my mom did it. For me, it didn't feel like that was the best route, right? I don't know the things that I need to teach a boy in order for him to grow into becoming a man. And your father loved being a father. He wanted to be a father. He wanted to be involved. And while we didn't work out, I couldn't stay in the area because career wise, opportunity wise, it just wasn't conducive for me to grow. And so I moved and I made the decision to have him be the primary caretaker and move and, then come back and forth to visit and see you. And it's not traditional. in any sense of the word, but when I say it definitely feels like it still remains to be the best decision I could have made. And I don't even know that, maybe your father agreed with it necessarily at the time, or maybe his friends or his family, because it is weird for a mother to be away from her child, especially at a young age. But to be perfectly honest, like, I felt very confident that you were capable. And it wasn't like I was going off to go party and I wanted to find better employment. I wanted to really become established in my career. And I've been able to do that.
So, yes, regarding what you're talking about as far as you moving up here, I was hurt, even though that you and I weren't together, you know, as most single parents know, it's not easy to raise a child on their own. Uh, and me coming from a background of being adopted, being given up for adoption, um, raising your child, being there for your child is very, important to me.
Mm.
Um, but as I got older and had more kids, I understand why, and I understand the reasoning behind it. And again, when we're young adults, you don't understand everything that's in the world. You don't understand why people do what they do.
Yeah.
All I knew is that I wanted to be different. I wanted to do different from my biological parents. You know, uh, and that was pretty much it.
Right. And for the record, your ethnicity is, because I'm sure people are,
Rose gold.
he's not rose gold, but
I am Japanese, black, and white.
excellent. So, for those who will automatically assume that you are Puerto Rican.
Well, I also go by Puerto Rican as well. Hola.
But Quincy, I know that at that young age, it was probably difficult for you to understand, I'm with Dada and Mama's up there. How was that from your perspective?
Um, I would honestly, I don't know. I feel like there are some parts of my life that I just like try to forget, in a way. Like, um, I just don't. I usually just don't think about it. But maybe like taking a reflection off of it. I
Mhm.
remember when you were in Paris, teaching,
Mhm.
um, you know, and there would be various things that you'd be doing, and I'd hear about it. So, it definitely felt weird. But then there were times when you were also there. Most of the time I was with dad. All the time I was with dad, and he brought me up, and you brought me up as well. But when you moved to Ashburn or came back up, I don't know. I don't think I really felt any certain way. I knew that you'd be. I just knew you'd be here. You know.
Yeah. And and that's and I'm very glad to hear you say that, because I know that was probably difficult for you to know that I'm off educating kids, elsewhere in the world. But to hear you say, like, I knew you would be here, like, but my dad raised me, but you raised me as well. Um, and that's why it was so important for me, at the very least, to make sure that I just did not, you know, move or go anywhere else for these last few years of you being in middle school and high school, because I I wanted to make sure I was stationary for you. And I think that did help change the narrative for us, and it allowed us to grow closer, and here we are. So
I have another question. What was the hardest thing to deal with, when raising him or just him growing, whether from him or from me or whatever? Because I know I was not easy to deal with.
Mhm. Well, you did kind of just answer that. Um, the hardest thing to deal with when it came to raising Quincy, quite honestly, was never raising Quincy, but it was, in essence, dealing with the fact that there were feelings that were involved, right? And like there's there's a fractured relationship, especially initially, and it felt like you were punishing me, right? For not only leaving you, but then of course leaving Quincy. Um, but yeah, that plus that. And it it just it was one of those things where it felt like you were insufferable in terms of communication. It felt like you would you were trying to control me in terms of things that needed to happen when it came to him, and you felt like if you were the one to iron out the details, it would kind of control me. And so I think a lot of times when I do go to the block button, it triggers me because it reminds me of those times when I experienced that with you in the initial stages of when it came to raising Quincy.
Yeah. Well, I got to say that you are correct in most of that. And, me having gone through more relationships with more children, they also agree with what you're saying.
Mm. Okay. Well, I appreciate that confirmation. I do. I do.
So I also would like to say my piece about my question to you. Um, and I do apologize to you and to everybody else that I've been that way towards. I can't tell you guys where that comes from, um, but it is true. And like I said in the beginning of this episode, we are all imperfect. And we will be that way all the way until we die. Uh, but as far as the hardest times for me in raising Quincy, there's two specific ones that stand out that hurt me. Um, and it was nothing that you did, it was all what I did. And one of them was when I was moving on to my relationship that I had Kyla in, and she did not want Quincy there. And I know you remember this because you talked to me a lot about the fear that you had. Uh, so when I brought him to you to come and live with you, that crushed me. And I would say probably more than my mom passing, more than, the separation in marriage, everything. And then the second time was shortly after that when I exited that relationship and came back up here. And Quincy was so confused, I would say. And all he said was, "Dad, I just want to go back to Norfolk with you." And that crushed me. Do you remember those times?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It was a very, I feel like it was an idle standpoint. Like, for the 17 years I've been alive, it's not a long time at all. But for that period of my life, it felt very idle. Like imagine a video game and there's just characters there, but you can't play as them.
Just stagnant.
Yeah, NPCs. That's what it felt like. It felt like every day would be the same. Um, and I was confused. I was very confused. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know that Kyla's mom did not want me. She didn't like me. I didn't know that until recently, very recently. Um, I don't know. I don't know.
And just to preface off that, like, you understand that that's nothing to do with you,
Hmm.
except for the fact that you were not hers. That's it. There wasn't anything about your personality that was wrong, anything about your actions that was wrong. Uh, it was simply she had some error in her programming that would not allow her to accept somebody else's child. And this happens often, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And, that was something that I had a concern with. And for the record, let that definitely be a red flag to anyone that if you come into a relationship with a child, if they do not accept your child, they ultimately do not accept you. And so, of course, when your father said, Quincy's gonna come up there to live with you, I was like, of course, that's my child. N- Send him. It wasn't a second thought. He was doing what was best for you, but it did hurt him because he was so used to having you all the time with him. And you know, we've definitely made it work, and I'm grateful that he did that, because who knows what your experience would have been like otherwise had he forced that. But nonetheless, here we are. um let's end this with probably like favorite memory favorite memory of mm, the three of us, and go.
My favorite memory. Okay, it was when I was very young. Very very young, and it's not Busch Gardens, but it was a flower place.
Yes,
It was a
yes.
flower place, and it was in Norfolk, and
The botanical
yeah,
gardens.
botanical gardens. Those really nice. Um, I don't remember how young I was, but I remember just like it was very hot, and
Oh,
I don't know. It's like a core memory, I guess. I don't.
that's mine too.
Oh, that's what you're gonna
Yeah,
say.
that's what I was gonna do. That's what I was gonna say. Our pictures are so
We have
cute.
pictures from that.
We do. I'm gonna bring them up for you, okay?
But yeah, those were really nice memories. Other than that, I don't remember. I feel like I just
That's
don't remember. I feel
okay.
like that might be the one of the only ones. But yeah.
Okay, your dad's
So being honest, I do not have a favorite memory of
turn.
Quincy because there's too many.
Of course. But I did say the three of us. But I
Oh,
mean,
the three of us.
if
Okay.
you ain't got one with me in it, it is what it is.
The three of us.
Just the three of us.
All right.
I mean, I know it was a long time ago,
So
to be fair.
so our second house that was on Westmoreland in
Mm,
Norfolk.
that was a nice one.
And then again, there was no specific memory, that was my favorite, but I think that it was just the overall experience in that house.
That was a beautiful house.
Yeah, because it was a home,
Mm,
it had us three and sometimes other people.
As visitors,
Yes, as
as guests.
visitors.
Like,
Yes,
let's always be
we were
abundantly
very
clear.
charitable.
Yes. Yes, your father
Um,
always opened our home for
yes,
people to
and I
stay.
don't recommend that either. Uh, but it was just everything. It was like the family environment, the home environment.
Hmm.
It was the cleaning, it was the cooking, it was the working. It was like even the bad times, like the times when we were cleaning the house one day and you ran outside as a baby, and all of a sudden the neighbors knocking on the door trying to bring you back. Or when I was working out on the treadmill and you crawled up behind me and stuck your hand under the belt. You know, the cat,
Okay,
the
so
cat
are we wrapping up this episode?
that I had and disappeared, but came back like weeks later.
1 week later.
Well,
One
I don't
week
know. I don't
later,
remember how
the
long.
cat came back.
So that would be like my fondest memories, just because like it was a home.
It was.
It was,
That house was a home.
So that would be mine.
Yeah. Well, this was good, you guys. This was like a little therapy session.
My
Hmm.
therapist is gonna like this one.
You're there. Say that again.
I said I know my therapist is gonna like this one.
I love that for
Yeah,
you.
y'all need me back.
Well, I am so happy that we did this special episode of Lessons My Son Taught Me. This was definitely very beautiful, and I'm so glad that we decided to do it. And of course, until next time, Quincy.
I love you guys. Love you guys.
Love
Oh,
you.
I love you guys.
We love you too.
And happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
That's a wrap.
Okay.